You know, there's a phrase I often hear, and most often comes from wannabe macho right-wing commentators. F around and find out. The idea is, give it a go. Push me. But don't be surprised when I beat the crap out of you in response. If you've been watching my videos so far, you know I've been going on about how a lot of the action we've seen from the Trump administration amounts to a distraction. I want us to remain absolutely focused on his moves to degrade our republic by centralizing and personalizing power, putting us on a path to one-man rule, backed by a takeover of our federal law enforcement agencies. This is ongoing, with Elon Musk continuing to do whatever the hell he and Trump want with the executive branch, unilaterally ending federal agencies and programs, regardless of whether it directly countermands laws passed by Congress. Time to grow a pair of ovaries, Congress, and fight back. You know, checks and balances and all of that. Stop this subversion of the Constitution. The purge of federal employees continues as well, with an eye toward installing personal loyalists to Trump. Even the CIA is being targeted now. And I can't not mention the January 6th pardons. Now politicians can call upon political gangs to commit violence in their names and have a perfectly legal way to get out of jail free. But I don't want to entirely ignore all of the other awfulness, and there's plenty to choose from. But it's of a different character. I'm putting this into a mental bucket of, well, I guess Americans just need to touch the stove. You know how it is with kids sometimes. Well, adults too, to be honest. You can tell them over and over not to do something, that it's unwise, that it's dangerous, that it'll hurt. But hey, they just touch the burner anyway. The thing about burns like this, though, is that you can recover. The burns will heal. So it is with what I want to talk about in this video. Here are the things that I think are serious, harmful, deadly even, but will survive. Plenty of people will get hurt. But if the republic is still intact, we can correct course and maybe even make amends. First up, rampant disease. I'm referring here to the elevation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. I have to admit, some of what Kennedy raises is important. On a personal note, I wonder why chronic conditions like food allergies, Crohn's, and cancers in young people are on the rise. But Kennedy is a well-known vaccine denier. Despite all the scientific study that backs up the safety and efficacy of vaccines, Kennedy is the tip of the iceberg of a whole cultural movement that goes from left to now right, apparently, of people who think they know better. Measles, polio, lots of other childhood diseases. They're likely to make a comeback if this guy has anything to say about it. And I guess children and parents will have to pay the price for us to relearn what George Washington already knew. I'm referring here to the fact that he was a big proponent of the smallpox vaccine and had his own troops inoculated, basically for military readiness. I'll throw in here, too, Trump's taking the U.S. out of the World Health Organization. One function of the WHO is to monitor global disease threats. The U.S. provided a big chunk of the funding. Now we're out. The other cabinet pick I'll briefly mention here is Tulsi Gabbard for the top intelligence official. She's widely regarded by the existing intelligence community as being compromised by foreign governments. The worry is that she'll pass along information to adversaries or won't give clear reports to the president. I can't really assess this one. Guess we'll find out. I mentioned this next topic in the last video, but I want to re-emphasize it here. After campaigning as some sort of peacemaker and anti-war candidate, Trump is on a real tear of threatening other countries, either economically, militarily, or both. He has said he wants to take over the Panama Canal, Greenland, and now this week, the Gaza Strip. And when asked, he refuses to rule out military means. Meanwhile, he uses tariff threats to bully neighbors and allies. Look, if you had this kind of crazy antisocial person living on your block, you'd be calling the cops and be looking to get a restraining order. Internationally, though, there are no cops. just the raw power of international relations. Sure, you can bully people in the short run, but we could be permanently damaging relationships cultivated over decades here. At a certain point, you drive people away and into one another's arms. And you better hope they don't gang up on you in the future, because now you're alone. The Trump administration has also taken steps to undermine the federal government's role in combating global warming, embracing the drill baby drill approach to energy and the environment. On this one, I want to break a bit from what I see as the left's climate catastrophism. In other words, that the world is going to go up in flames right around the corner unless drastic action is taken right now to curb carbon emissions. If you follow any lefty feeds at all, you've seen images of the globe on fire. The scientific fact is that the world has been a lot warmer in the past, and life still survived. Heck, dinosaurs even lived on Antarctica and wandered around in forests. So, the world isn't going to ignite. That said, all of human civilization and our current patterns of living all occurred in the climate conditions we have now. If climate belts across the globe shift, people are going to have to move. And boy, if you think we've seen disruptive migration lately, blowing up US and European politics, just wait until that starts happening. There will be tremendous human suffering, for the displaced and the poor anyway. We could take steps to reduce that future suffering, but apparently not under this administration. All right, after deep history and future global disruption, let's get boring. I'm going to talk about the federal debt. I can already see you falling asleep, and I can't even really see you. But if you pay attention to this, the U.S. federal debt has absolutely ballooned in the last 20 years. Just back in 2008, it was about 2/3 of our annual income, also known as GDP. Now it's 120%. There are several reasons for this. The financial bailouts from the Great Recession, the COVID response. But a huge driver of this has been tax cuts. If you're going to have government spending, you have to pay for it. You can do that either through taxes or by taking out loans. Increasingly, we've cut taxes, forcing the government to take out more and more loans. Trump's big first-term tax cut package was part of the problem. And although he and other Republicans haven't talked about it much lately, an extension or a whole new round of tax cuts is coming. We could blow yet another giant hole in our fiscal health. So much for fiscal conservatives. And hey, I'm willing to debate what appropriate federal spending is and how to pay for it. Count me in for an honest, rational discussion of trade-offs and a grand compromise. But simply cutting taxes and hope for the best? At some point, the bills will come due, and we either have a massive crash or massive inflation to cover the debt. Crashes are never good, and seeing what inflation has already wrought, well, I wouldn't recommend that. Finally, I cannot let this go. I have to come back to the creeping authoritarianism that we have going on. We've seen that in plenty of countries over history. I sure don't like the look of that, as I have made clear. Do we really want to f*** around and find out with dictatorship? So again, my point in this video is that there are a lot of things the Trump administration is doing that are awful. But we'll survive. There could be a lot of suffering, but we can recover. But we'll likely only be motivated to recover when we've learned or relearned the dangers. I guess that's just the way it is with we flawed human beings sometimes. Gotta get burned to learn. But damn, wouldn't it be so much easier to never touch the stove? Good luck, America.